Alright, so you all probably know that back when I started to play the game, my endgame goal was Sister of Eve, first Stratios and then the Nestor. Well, something a little bit over a year from that moment, I finally am in the Nestor. This is Sister of Eve's faction battleship. This is truly one beautiful ship, and definitely one of the most unique designs in Eve. Now, you will notice a lot of moving parts on the ship, especially in the front section of this monster. They also have the famous Sister of Eve, well, not sure if I can call them wings, but these Stargate-like structures that I guess help the ship moving forward. I don't know. So the Nestor has a very interesting role bonus. This is basically a capital or sub-capital logistic ship. Has remote armor repair bonuses, range on them, and of course overall volume that they can repair. This ship also has some of the Sister of Eve bonuses. Now it doesn't have any Corvatop's clocking device bonus, so you can't fit a Corvatop's clocking device. If you could, this would have been called the first Black Ops battleship in this game, but at the moment these ships are not available. Of course, you can use this for scanning, you can use this for cargo transport, and of course you can use this ship for PvP, for storyline missions, and of course one of its main purposes is being a logistic battleship. Now, not quite sure how many logistic players will fly the ship, especially after you take a look at how much it costs. It's something a little bit over 25 billion at the moment. So it is one very expensive logistic ship that, logistic ships tend to be focused down very quickly in a large fight. This ship has 4 drones, 4 high slots, 4 medium slots, 6 low slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs. Has decent defense, has decent armor resistances. This is primarily a armor tank. You can't shield tank a Nestor, it just will not work. Has pretty decent capacitors and everything else is pretty average. Now, this ship is very light for its size and it has pretty good inertia modifier. So when we take a look at these numbers, then I would say this thing can be very fast. And I was also told that this might be the fastest faction battleship in this game. So I'll be playing around with several builds. Now, this is the build as a logistic ship, although I'm just going to say this right now. I personally don't believe anyone would use this ship at the moment for a logi in a massive fight. Even in a small fight, if you don't have a Guardian, this ship will definitely get called the primary target, especially after you take a look at how much it costs. Currently, these ships are very, very expensive. So expensive that they are not worth to be used for any large-scale combat or a large-scale fight. You can see that the bonuses definitely apply on all modules. The armor repairabilities on this thing is pretty damn good. And in the future, when the price of these ships goes down, then I can definitely see the Nestor being used a lot as a sub-capital logistic ship. Now these are the rigs. I went with full-on resistance, and I might actually swap the engineering rigs later on just to show you how fast this thing can go. But these are the current rigs that I have, integration rigs in the combat and a combination for capacitor, lock time and Wapco optimizers in the engineering rig section at this current moment. Now the DPS is nothing impressive, but the resistance, oh man, the resistance, that's a pretty good number at the moment. Of course, current skills for battleships I believe I have all maxed out, so you can definitely see the effect kicking in. A hole on EM, but everything else seems to be pretty high up. And of course, let me just quickly also show you the rest of the stats. Will be very interesting to see how quick this ship will go. Now this is the fit with rapid missiles. Drone boats love to use missile launchers, and I believe this will work quite well for this ship. Decent stats, triple web and a scrambler as for, well, defense against frigates and interceptors. One afterburner in the low slots, the rest is armor repair and armor hardeners. Now I also have the build with large Nosferatu. That also keeps the capacitor up and running a little bit longer, although the capacitor is not that stable. And of course, if you want a capacitor battery, then you can use it and your capacitor will be super stable, almost at 80%. Now, I personally prefer to use large missiles, normal large missiles on this ship, although the rapid missile launchers are also pretty good for close range combat, but I'll be playing around with the large missiles. This is also a build with the afterburner, and of course dual Nosferatu, dual armor repair and triple armor hardener. Well then, I believe it's time to undock and see what this ship can do outside. Now let's take a look at speed. Look at that maneuverability. This thing turns so quickly it's not even funny. This is basically battlecruiser maneuverability on a battleship. Now, let's take a look at the resistance. Well, okay. This is one tanky brick. Well, I can't call this ship a brick, it's ridiculously fast. That's also a lot of effective health there. And almost all 90% resistance, a little hole on EM, but everything else seems to be pretty much above 85%. So, let me just take now its velocity is, let's see, 684.17 meters per second. This is actually pretty quick if we take a look at its very slow base velocity of something above 160 meters per second. So, like I've promised, let's jump in and take a look at a different build for the Nestor. In the other build, I'll focus more on this ship's velocity, on its speed. Now, the current base velocity is 139 meters per second. So, the micro warp drive will also take a hit on your capacitor, so you should keep that in mind. Your capacitor will be a little bit lower with the micro warp drive. So, let's see how fast it will go with the micro warp drive. This is with the current rigs installed. Haven't changed the rigs at the moment, but we'll change rigs in the next segment. 1.6 kilometers per second. Okay, this thing is fast. That's a very decent speed. Keep in mind the base velocity is 139 meters per second, while with the micro warp drive it goes 1.6 kilometers per second. The difference, yeah, it's quite fast and quite maneuverable. Also disgustingly tanky, almost all 90% resistance. And I believe I can actually push that number a little bit higher if I just change the rigs that I currently use. But, like I promised, let's change the rigs. 3 auxiliary thrusters, all are tier 3, 196 meters per second base velocity. So, if my math is correct, this thing should go around 2.3 kilometers per second. And of course, time to test that theory out in practical use. Oh man, very interesting ship. Almost what I expected, but it's a little bit different though. Alright, let's see. Oh my god, 2.3 kilometers per second. Well, around what I expected. This thing is fast. And I can call this the fastest the fastest faction battleship currently available in the game. It's actually faster than the Machariel, I believe. And if I just change the rigs a little bit, I believe I can go 3K with this. Now, currently, should I do that? Although I don't think I have enough. Not quite sure if I can afford 3 rig integrations. That would be a lot of auxiliary thrusters. I have to sell something before I can actually try that out. But overall, I'm terrified of that speed. This is one fast battleship, and not quite sure what to feel about this ship currently, because we have dreadnoughts released and they are also quite pricey. So should you buy a Nestor or should you buy a dreadnought or carrier? Well, I would say getting a carrier or a dreadnought will be a better idea. Now I'll also take the ship out for a little spin to see how it performs, to see how quick can it clear missions and things like that. That's a massive signature radius, by the way. Literally almost as long as a dreadnought. So even if you're going that fast, you are still going to get hit by a lot of guns, because that is one huge signature radius on this ship. Alright, well, time to take a look at how the Nestor performs. Now, the Barghest is still very expensive, and I thought the Barghest was one of the fastest. It is one of the fastest battleships. But the Barghest is a snail compared to the Nestor. The Nestor is just ridiculously fast. Now, what does that mean for missions? Can you do missions in the Nestor? Well, I'll say something that happened a couple days ago. When I was running around in my Ortus, scanning in lowsec, as I do almost every day, I just stumbled upon a Nestor. And it was doing, I believe, the Caldari Tier 8 storyline. Was it Soldier's Way or the other one? I kinda forgot. It doesn't matter at this moment. So I warped in. I saw the ship at 100 kilometers, and guess what? I couldn't catch it. It did not warp away. The Nestor did not warp away. It was there. It just was laughing at my speed. I couldn't catch it. Now that was kind of funny, and that did kind of inspire me to take the ship out and see what it can do. So that Nestor was fast. I wasn't able to gain any distance to it at all, because our speeds were almost identical, and its drones did try to eat me alive, so I couldn't catch that ship. And good fight to the pilot. They knew how to fight this ship. So in PvE applications, quite risky, because if you get scanned by very hungry pirates, if you make one mistake, an interceptor, for example, can easily catch you. So it definitely has PvE applications, but it's still way too expensive. Now, if you want to do classic tier 10, tier 9 encounters, you can do that, but strikers and other faction battleships that cost 10 times less perform 10 times better, because they have superior DPS. This ship I have around 1.1, 1.2k DPS with drones and missiles active. My Machariel has 5.5 thousand DPS. I did change the rigs quite a bit. So the Machariel can clear missions on paper 5 times faster. Now, the Machariel is not as fast, but it can clear missions way faster, and of course currently tier 10 and tier 9 missions are the main money makers in the game. Of course, strikers, Apocalypse Striker, or as I like to call it, Paladin, is currently the king of the PvE ships that they can clear missions. 120 million ISK an hour without a problem with the Apocalypse Striker. The second place would probably go to the Megatron Striker, I believe, because it has the second highest DPS, but the range and damage application kind of bad because of the weapon that it uses. Now, one thing, like I mentioned before, where this ship would be very useful is definitely as a sub-capital logi. We don't have the forced auxiliary structures in this game yet. These ships are classified as, I believe, capital logistic ships. I have to actually take that out and see, because I forgot how these ships are called in EVE Online, but currently they're not available. Have no idea when they will be released. I would guess that they would be released at one point in the future. So this ship as a sub-capital Logi can be definitely used, although I would say I would not use it because it is too expensive, and we have dreadnoughts and carriers. Dreadnoughts can eat this ship alive, despite it having so many resistances, and it is pretty good for tanking. But the dreadnoughts, couple of them, and carriers, fighters, and all that stuff, if a Nestor gets focused, it really needs heavy support to keep it alive, because these things will get called primary target in a fight. That's guaranteed. Logistic ships tend to die first in a mass scale fight. After them, usually the Guardians are next, or in some cases it is the other way around. So currently these ships are just way too expensive for the average Logi pilot to get their hands on them, except if they are Corp built or Alliance built or Coalition built ships. Then they can be easily distributed to the teams, to the players, and they can be used for large scale fights. Now, I also believe that this ship did arrive a little bit too late. Maybe if the dreadnoughts and capital ships were not released, then I can definitely see this ship being used, because then it can tank all of the other ships that are currently available to the game. But the capital ships did change the game quite a bit, and the capital ships do a lot of damage, so the Nestor did kind of arrive a little bit too late to be used actively. But they say better late than never, so I expect to see this ship in the very near future being actively used as a heavy logistic, because a couple of these ships can repair whole fleets without a problem, based on the stats that it has and based on the bonuses it has for armor repair. Now, you definitely want to have a armor guardian by the side of these ships. You definitely want other logistics. You definitely want a big organized fleet if you want to use an Nestor. Because, well, currently on the market I did see one 22 billion ISK, the other one went for sale for 25 billion ISK. The first Nestor ever built went for 32 billion ISK. I did kinda see that one getting sold. I'll just say that, and I'll just leave it at that. Now, you can also focus for more DPS if you like, but I kinda don't see a point in increasing its DPS, because its DPS already by default isn't that much. I mean, I guess you can change that with rig integrations, but I would still go for resistance, especially how expensive this thing is. Now, I learned a very important lesson. My ships are most like very expensive, and you all probably know that. Average ship in my hangar like costs 4 or 5 billion. Very expensive boats. So I learned that resistance is definitely a lot more valuable over raw DPS. And in the last couple of ships that I flew, especially for PvP, only for PvP, I did build them to have some form of resistance over DPS, because outlasting your opponents is in a lot of cases better than out DPSing them, because if you can outlast them, your victory is almost guaranteed. If you can't, well, you lose your ship or you have to warp out. And you know, I personally don't use warp core optimizers. I don't like them, and I will never use them, most likely. Depends on what ship. You know what's funny? If I would have a PvE ship only, then I would definitely slap a couple warp core optimizers on that ship. But for PvP ships, I don't like to use warp core optimizers. It's not fun. Now, for PvE, you all know my internet is pretty terrible, and I lose connection almost on a daily basis, so if I would to get caught in a PvE mission without work optimizers, I would probably have a very bad day. But Most of my ships are already tanky. But just in case, if I, for example, cannot log in for a very long time because of my internet, then having a warp core optimizer is going to be very useful because your ship will warp away on its own. But in the end, I would still prefer not to use them on the Nestor. This ship is fast, and when I imagine this ship in a fleet, I would imagine it with capacitor rigs, or warp core optimizers again, but I would go with capacitor rigs, capacitor regeneration speed, and capacitor volume increase to keep the remote armor repairers up and running. So far, they have been... You know, I don't know if any of us will fly Nestor in PvP at the moment. That might happen, because, well, we have some... Let's say we have some very thick armor tank ships that are just waiting to be used, and having an armor Logi and an armor Guardian is definitely going to be very useful for us. Now this pirate here did go through my shield, but once it hit armor, the damage just stopped. The damage input just like stopped, and as you can see, you can do encounters with this ship, although it will take a very long time to complete them. So long, in fact, that I would say to go and, well, buy another faction battleship that has more DPS, or to get a striker battleship, because these things just go through these missions without a problem, and you can make a lot of ISK per hour with the other ships. That doesn't mean that the Nestor is bad. The Nestor is pretty damn good. I love this ship. I'm very surprised at how it runs. And people did tell me that this thing is fast. At first I was kinda skeptical, did not believe that it could be that fast with such a low base speed, but after playing it for myself, my opinion about this ship changed a lot. So, can I recommend the Nestor at this current time in the game? Well, it's too expensive, so I would say it's the same opinion that I have with the Barghest. Both of these ships are pretty good. They offer fantastic things, fantastic bonuses, but their price at this current time in the game is just too ridiculous, and if you end up losing one of these ships, it will hurt a lot. So my opinion on this ship is the same as on the Barghest. Both of them are too expensive for the current moment, and you can definitely find other ships that are cheaper, and of course that give out basically the same things that these ships can do. So hope that you enjoyed. This is one very beautiful ship that I'm happy to be able to fly one. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll catch you next time.